Have you ever been completely ignored by a woman, only to find out she can't stop thinking about another guy who treats her with indifference? It's no coincidence, it's a power dynamic, and you're losing because you don't even know how to play it. There's one glaring, almost invisible mistake you make from the very first second that destroys any chance of her missing or respecting you. You keep making it, and every time you do, you hand over total control to her. In this video I'm going to reveal the strategy inspired by history's coldest, most calculating mind, Machiavelli, to turn you from being the invisible man to her mental obsession. If you're fed up with being manipulated and want the power to make any woman miss you, even one who's never shown any interest, stick around until the end. What you'll discover today will give you an unfair advantage. Topic 1. The mistake of showing excessive interest before the other person feels the same, which leads to a loss of power in the relationship. Observe the beginner in this battlefield that some insist on calling love. His first, and most pathetic, mistake is he meets a woman who barely gives him a glance, and in his mind he's already built a castle for them both. He inundates her with messages, good mornings that don't matter to her, and compliments that sound like supplication. This man, in his desperation to please, commits the cardinal sin of mind games. He gives away his power before it's even been established. He doesn't understand that interest, to be genuine, must be earned, not offered on a silver platter like an offering to an indifferent goddess. Every unanswered message is a piece of his own worth that he throws into the fire. He thinks he's being romantic, but in reality he's digging the grave of attraction and, worse, of any respect she might ever have for him. It's a game of chess, and he has unknowingly sacrificed his queen on the first move, hoping the opponent will take pity on his stupidity. This uncontrollable urge to over-invest stems from a profound lack of emotional control. The man who acts this way is not driven by genuine affection, but by a need for validation. His ego is so fragile that he seeks confirmation of his own worth in her attention. He is an emotional beggar, and women, especially high-value women, smell that need a mile away. It's repulsive to them because it demonstrates that his center of gravity is not in himself, but in external approval. A true high-value man has his own kingdom, his own agenda, his own life. His interest is a privilege he grants, not a pamphlet he hands out on the street to anyone who happens to pass by. The inability to manage one's anxiety and desire for instant gratification is what gives the amateur away and makes him an easy pawn to move, or, more commonly, to ignore altogether on the mental game board. It's the first filter, the first test, and most fail miserably. From her perspective, this torrent of unsolicited attention is, at best, overwhelming. At worst, a red flag of instability and low status. The high-value man is, by definition, a scarce resource. His time, energy, and attention are valuable precisely because they aren't available to everyone. When a man gives all of this away from the outset, without her having done anything at all to deserve it, the implicit message is clear. I have no other options. I have no interesting life. You are my only source of excitement. This destroys any semblance of mystery and challenge. As Machiavelli would teach, what is obtained to Waisili is valued too little. Human nature yearns for what it cannot have, desires to conquer what offers resistance. By showing all his cards, this man not only loses the game, but nullifies the game entirely, becoming a predictable and therefore uninteresting object. This overinvestment in behavior is the most fertile ground for manipulation. By demonstrating such obvious need, the man hands her an instruction manual on how to control him. She quickly learns that with a crumb of attention, with an ambiguous response every so often, she can keep him hooked, orbiting her like a pathetic satellite. He becomes her source of ego, the safe plan B, the guy who will always be there. There is no masculine strategy in his actions. There is only reaction, need, and tacit submission. She may not be aware of her own Machiavellian and calculated manipulation, but she will instinctively use that power dynamic to her advantage. He has created the conditions for being used. Simply by not understanding the first rule of power, never appear needier than your interlocutor. He has surrendered control of his own emotional state, and that is an open invitation to be dominated. Paragraph 5. Thus, silently and invisibly to the needy man, the transition occurs. She mentally files him under the category of friend, admirer, or, worse, the annoying chat room. He continues investing, hoping for a return that will never come. Unaware that the transaction has already closed and he is bankrupt, he has lost respect, which is the fundamental currency in any power relationship. Without respect there is no attraction. There is only pity, or, at worst, disdain. The mistake has already been made and seems irreversible, a sentence handed down in the silent tribunal of female attraction. Most men reach this point and give up, blaming luck or women. But the strategist, the man who understands Machiavelli, knows that every mistake is a lesson in power, and he wonders, what if this disadvantaged position could actually be the starting point for a masterful counteroffensive? What if there was a movement to use their perception of you to your advantage? Now that you understand the poison of overinvestment, it's time to learn the antidote. The The first and most fundamental male strategy for regaining power is known as the strategic mirror. The concept is as simple in its formulation as it is difficult in its execution for the untrained man. You become an exact reflection of the energy she projects back at you. No more, no less. If she sends you a 3-word text, your reply can't be 10. If she takes 8 hours to respond, don't respond in 8 seconds. This isn't a tit-for-tat child's play. It's a value calibration maneuver. By mirroring her investment, you subconsciously communicate to her that your attention is a precious commodity and that the dynamic between you will be one of equals. It demands immense emotional control because your impulse, fueled by need, will be to break the mirror and return to supplication. But the man who masters this art takes the first step out of the mire of neediness and begin walking the path of respect. The effect that strategic mirroring has on the female psyche is profound and destabilizing. An attractive woman is accustomed to one of two things: the relentless pursuit of the majority or the total ignorance of a few. Your mirroring behavior breaks this binary pattern. You don't pursue her, but you don't ignore her either. You are there, but on her terms. This ambiguity is torture for the ego and a magnet for curiosity. Does she like me or not? Why is she acting as indifferent as I am? These questions will begin to occupy space in her mind space she previously devoted to other men. You've started a mind game in her head without her realizing it, and the goal of that game is to decipher you. Suddenly, the hunter has become the enigmatic prey. This is the first step toward earning her respect on a primal level, for you demonstrate that you are not driven by base instinct but rather operate from a higher plane of awareness and self-control. Think of the strategic mirror as a diagnostic and power tool. By mirroring her effort, you force her to reveal her true level of interest. If she wants more conversation, more of your time, more of your energy, she'll have to be the one to increase the investment. The high-value man doesn't push a dying conversation. He simply lets it die down. If she revives it, fine. If not, he's already occupied in his own realm. This is a lesson straight from the pages of Machiavelli. Make your opponent reveal their intentions and resources while you conserve yours. You shift the burden of keeping the interaction moving forward to her. You're no longer the entertainer who has to juggle to keep her entertained. You're the judge assessing whether her effort is worthy of your attention. This reversal of the dynamic is subtle, but it fundamentally changes who's in control of the relationship framework. The execution of this tactic is a litmus test of your emotional control. There will be times when she, perhaps out of boredom, or to test you, will throw you a bone, a longer message, a quicker response. The amateur will see this as a green light and hit the gas, over-investing again and destroying all the mystery she had built, a fatal error. The strategist knows that one swallow does not make a summer. He will hold the mirror, perhaps adding a slight tinge of warmth, but without breaking the frame. This is an advanced form of perceptual manipulation. You are conditioning her to understand that greater effort on her part will be rewarded, not with a torrent, but with a controlled trickle. This is the true male strategy. It's not about reacting to her crumbs, but about educating her on how she must treat you to gain the privilege of your genuine interest. When you master the mirror, you stop being a reactor and become an enigma. Your unpredictability becomes your greatest weapon. She doesn't know what your next move will be because, in essence, you've ceded control of the tempo to her and it drives her crazy. You've reclaimed the initial power and laid the foundation for respect. But mirroring is only the defense, the initial counterattack that gets you out of the danger zone. For her to truly miss you, for her to think about you when you're not there, it's not enough to be a mirror. A mirror only shows what's right in front of it. To create a void, for her to feel your absence as a physical longing, you must learn to remove the mirror altogether. You must master the art of disappearing, not out of necessity, but out of strategy. Topic 3. Calculated absence, the second strategy, which involves the use of response buffering, unpredictable pattern of responses, and controlled mystery to create desire and anticipation. The strategic mirror has leveled your playing field in the mental game, but to win, you can't always play defense. Now it's time to go on the offensive with calculated absence. This isn't the busy man who forgets to respond absence. It's a deliberate absence, a silence that weighs more than 1,000 words. Here you introduce response buffering. Your pattern of responses becomes intentionally unpredictable. Sometimes you respond quickly, with wit and warmth. Other times you leave a message on read for hours, or even a whole day, not out of carelessness, but because you're communicating a powerful truth. Your world doesn't revolve around your phone waiting for her notification. This inconsistency creates a short circuit in her brain. Predictability breeds comfort and boredom. Unpredictability breeds intrigue and obsession. You're applying a controlled dose of emotional stress that forces her to wonder, where is she? What's she doing? Why hasn't she gotten back to me? You have stopped being a reflection and have become a ghost. The second pillar of this strategy is controlled mystery. It's not about being a closed book, but about being a book from which you only reveal the most interesting chapters, always leaving the ending in suspense. When you talk to her, don't tell her your entire life story. Give her glimpses, not a whole picture. Mention a fascinating project you're working on, an unexpected trip you're planning, an unusual skill you're developing, but don't give away all the details. This is a key lesson from Machiavelli about wielding power. People fear and respect what they don't fully understand. By creating these information gaps, you invite her to try to fill them with her imagination, and her imagination will almost always paint a much more compelling and grandiose picture of you than simple reality. You're feeding her curiosity, turning your life into a series she's desperate to watch the next episode of, and to do that, she needs your attention. This combination of an unpredictable response pattern and deliberate mystery is a sophisticated form of desire manipulation. You're creating a dopamine loop in her brain. When you give her attention, a quick reply, an interesting detail about you, she feels a reward. When you take it away, silence, mystery, you generate a craving, a need to feel that reward again. This is identical to the mechanism that hooks us on slot machines. The promise of an intermittent, unpredictable reward. A high-value man isn't a constant source of validation. He's a prize to be won sporadically. With this masculine strategy, you're training her subconscious to associate your presence with pleasure and your absence with attention that only you can resolve. Emotional control here is vital. You must be the one who decides when to turn the tap on and off, based on your strategy, not your need for contact. Calculated absence also serves as an emotional investment filter. A woman with low interest will simply disappear when you apply this technique, and she will have done you a favor, saving you time and energy. But a woman whose interest has already been piqued by your mirror phase will feel your absence as a loss. It's a litmus test to measure how much you really matter to her. Her reaction to your silence will give you all the information you need. Does she text you again, seeking your attention? Is she trying to extract more details about your mysterious plans? If so, you know your strategy is working. You've created the necessary vacuum for her to start pursuing you. You've completely shifted the power dynamic, shifting from being the one who seeks to being the one who is sought. And in that process, her respect for you multiplies, because you're demonstrating with actions, not words, that you're a man with a purpose that goes beyond gaining her approval. Mastering calculated absence is what separates the amateur player from the true strategist. It's a delicate dance on a razor's edge between generating mystery and appearing simply disinterested or arrogant. The key is calibration. Absence must be followed by moments of high-quality connection, however brief. But this game of appearing and disappearing, of giving and taking, while powerful, can become predictable if not managed correctly. What happens when she gets used to your intermittence? How do you maintain the tension without it becoming a recognizable pattern? You must understand why constant availability is your worst enemy and how to build an arsenal of value that makes your presence an event, not a routine. Topic 4. Predictability is the enemy. How excessive availability leads to being taken for granted, and the importance of building an interesting life. The greatest enemy of attraction isn't conflict or disagreement, it's predictability. The man who is always available, always willing, always a text away, commits strategic suicide. He becomes a utility, like tap water. Useful, functional, but completely devoid of perceived value. The moment she knows she can have your attention whenever she wants it, you cease to be a prize and become a resource. Being taken for granted is the prelude to the total loss of respect and, consequently, power in any kind of relationship. The mind game ends when one of the players becomes as predictable as the sunrise. Attraction, by its very nature, feeds on tension, doubt, and mystery. Being an open book and always available, you tear out the most exciting pages of your story yourself. This is where many aspiring strategists fail miserably. They learn about calculated absence and decide to fake a busy life. They post old photos, make excuses, lie about their plans. This is a house of cards. A smart woman, especially one who's experienced at the mind game, will smell the charade a mile away. True male strategy isn't about creating an illusion of worth, but about forging real, undeniable worth. You can't fake an empire. The solution isn't to turn off your phone and stare at the ceiling for 3 hours to pretend you're busy. The solution is to have a real fucking exciting reason not to be looking at your phone. Laziness is the fastest path to being figured, tout and discarded. Hard work on yourself is the only sustainable male strategy. A high-value man doesn't need to invent an interesting life because he's too busy living it. What does this mean in practical terms? It means having missions. Join that boxing gym that intimidates you. Launch that online project you've been putting off for years. Learn that language that will open the world to you. Plan a solo trip to a place that will take you out of your comfort zone. These aren't mere hobbies. They are the fires in which a man's character is forged. Machiavelli advised his prince to be a master of war and hunting, not for leisure, but to toughen body and spirit. Your war is against your own mediocrity. Your hunt is that of your own ambitions. When you have goals you're passionate about, women go from being the target to a wonderful complement to an already full life. When your life is genuinely rich and challenging, tactics like strategic mirroring and calculated absence become organic. You don't have to remember not to respond immediately. Often, you'll be genuinely engaged. Your silences aren't a forced manipulation technique, but the natural result of your focus on your own goals. Your stories aren't fabricated to impress, but are the byproduct of your experiences. This level of authenticity is magnetic and virtually impossible to fake. It gives you unshakable emotional control because your self-worth depends not on a woman's validation, but on your own accomplishments and progress. You become immune to manipulation because, quite simply, you have better things to do than engage in childish power games. You operate from your own center of power. Building this life is the foundation of everything. It is the ultimate source of power and respect that cannot be taken away. You become the prize, the center of your own universe, and it is she who will long to enter your orbit. However, having a kingdom is not enough. You must know how to govern it. Having a valuable life creates a new problem: managing your most precious resources, your time and attention. How do you now distribute this coveted asset? How do you ensure that every interaction adds value and reinforces your status, rather than diluting it? Building the empire is the first part of the battle. The second is learning to reign. Okay, I'll integrate the subscription and like request into the next thread, keeping it in line with the mentor's tone. Topic 5. Strategic calendar and selective attention. Techniques for managing time and providing quality, not quantity, attention to generate stories and value. You've built the foundation for an interesting life. Now you must learn to act like the king of that empire, not its concierge. Your most valuable resource is no longer your money or your status, it's your time. The strategic calendar isn't a nerd's planner. It's a statement of power. It's the mindset that dictates that your time is invested, not spent. The common man gives his time away to the first woman who smiles at him, hoping she'll thank him. The strategist, the high-value man, understands that his time is an asset and allocates it with the precision of a surgeon. Each block of time granted must have a purpose: to generate an experience, create a memory, advance the narrative. To leave your time to chance is to cede control of the mind game and, ultimately, surrender your power. Most men operate under the fallacy of quantity. They believe more texts, more calls, and more boring coffee dates equal more attraction. Wrong, that's noise. Constant, low-value attention becomes invisible. The real masculine strategy lies in quality and selectivity. It's the difference between an inaccurate artillery barrage and a single, lethal sniper shot. Instead of sending a "Hi, what's up?" every day, you disappear for 3 days and then send a text that says, "Got 2 tickets to that concert we talked about. Thursday at 9, I'll pick you up." The first approach creates boredom. The second generates a story, excitement, and shows you're taking initiative. You're creating spikes of interest, not a flat line of predictable communication. This is where selective attention comes into play. When you decide to invest your time in her, you give her 100% of your presence. No looking at your phone, no small talk. You listen to her, you challenge her, you make her laugh. You give her a high-quality experience that contrasts starkly with the mediocre and distracted attention she receives from other men. This requires iron-fisted emotional control because it means being comfortable during periods of silence, knowing that your next move will be high impact. This is an elegant form of perception manipulation. The scarcity of your attention makes its value skyrocket. She learns that time with you is an event, a privilege, not a routine. And as Machiavelli teaches, a prince who hosts banquets every day impresses no one, but one who hosts them rarely turns each feast into a legend. So you stop asking when, "Are you free?" like a subordinate asking for an audience. That's a low-status stance that cedes all the decision-making power to her. Instead, you dictate the plan. "I'll be in your area Tuesday night. Let's stop by that new place for a drink." Notice the difference. You're not asking permission, you're offering an opportunity. You're the director of the movie, not an actor waiting for his lines. This isn't arrogance, it's leadership. You're showing that you have a life and you're willing to share a portion of it, but on your terms. This simple reversal of language is a status demonstration that raises her level of respect for you almost instantly. Because women are hardwired to respond to male direction and certainty. This is the kind of knowledge that breaks paradigms and puts you ahead of 99% of men. It's an unfair advantage in the mental game. If this material is providing you with real value, if you're beginning to see the strings that move the world, do 2 things right now. First, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is the only way to ensure you don't miss the next lesson. Second, give this a like to signal that you're part of the circle of men who don't settle for leftovers. Failing to do so is a conscious choice to remain ignorant. Now, mastering your time and attention makes you a valuable resource, but the transformation isn't complete. You must evolve from being a resource to being the leader of the expedition. 6th topic, the transition from pursuer to leader, the final transformation. Focusing on having a plan and being directive, instead of asking for permission. All the previous strategies, the mirror, absence, the calendar, have been training, preparation for the real battle. They have served to build your courage and regain power. Now is the crowning moment, the transition from pursuer to leader. This is the most crucial mindset shift in the entire mental game. It boils down to a simple, yet profound, modification of language and intention. You stop asking for permission and start presenting a plan. The man who asks, "Would you like to go out with me sometime?" is a beggar asking for a handout of time. The leader who says, "Let's go to that speakeasy Friday night," is a king offering an adventure. The first begs for a place in her world, the second invites her into his. This is the fundamental difference that separates the boy from the man. The act of asking permission is an instant abdication of your power. By asking, "What would you like to do?" you're transferring the mental burden of planning to him, and worse, you're communicating that you don't have a vision. A man without a plan is a sinking ship, and no woman in her right mind will want to come aboard. It's a sign of weakness that annihilates respect. A high-value man always has a plan. He may adapt it, he may change it, but he starts from a position of certainty. Indecision is the most potent attraction repellent there is. The ultimate male strategy isn't to be the best-looking or the richest guy, but the most determined. Certainty is the most underrated aphrodisiac. The female psyche is deeply attuned to respond to leadership energy. This isn't a social construct. It's a primal hardwiring. Masculine direction and decisiveness are synonymous with confidence, competence, and the ability to navigate the chaos of the world. A woman wants to feel she can let go of the wheel and enjoy the ride, trusting that the driver knows where he's going by being directive. You not only take the stress of having to decide away from her, but you also pass a fundamental competency test. You're demonstrating through actions that you're a man capable of taking charge. This is a form of dynamic manipulation.